October 1780, a Lakota family faced a brutal choice. Walk nearly 300 miles in 12 days, with a 5-year-old covering marathon distances each day, or freeze to death as the Great Plains plunged from 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. For them, this was not an emergency. It was the rhythm of survival, fueled by a food so dense modern science still cannot replicate it, and a culture where kindergartners walked more in 2 weeks than most adults do all year. How did they make the impossible routine, and what did it cost? October winds sweep across the northern prairie, stripping warmth from the grasslands as the sun dips lower each day. A Lakota family watches the sky, counting the hours before the first true winter storm. Their winter camp lies nearly 200 miles away, sheltered in timber beside a frozen river. The distance isn't a choice. It is the difference between survival and disaster. Every member of the family, from the youngest to the oldest, faces the same reality. If they do not reach shelter before the temperature crashes, they risk freezing on the open plain. A 5-year-old girl shoulders her own sleeping furs, eyes fixed on her parents' steady pace. The group must cover close to 20 miles each day, crossing open prairie, riverbeds, and early snow. Nights grow colder, dropping from 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, with the threat of blizzard always looming. Each morning, the family rises in darkness, packs their bundles, and walks, because stopping is not an option. In this world, endurance isn't heroic. It is required. The prairie does not forgive hesitation, and the clock is always ticking. Lakota childhood was measured in footsteps, not milestones. From the moment a toddler could walk, movement became part of daily life. At age 2, a child might follow their mother to gather wood, covering a mile or more before breakfast. By 3, the distance doubled or tripled, checking rabbit snares, fetching water, or chasing after older siblings. These were not special outings. Every task demanded travel. The nearest water source might be a mile away, firewood another 2. Play meant running through grass, not sitting indoors. By 5, most children kept pace with adults for 10 miles or more, their bodies shaped by routine, not willpower. Complaints held little weight. The expectation was simple: keep moving. Older children took on longer errands, sometimes venturing 15 miles in a day. By adolescence, matching the adults' 20-mile pace was just another part of growing up. For this family, a 5-year-old walking 20 miles was not remarkable. It was the product of a life where every day laid the foundation for endurance, step by step. Survival on the open prairie depended on more than strong legs. It hinged on a food so dense and portable that a single handful could power hours of movement. Pemmican began with lean buffalo meat, dried until hard, then pounded to a fine powder. This was not a quick task. 40 pounds of meat might take 3 days to process by hand. Each shred worked with stone tools. The next step was fat, rendered with precision. Too hot and it spoiled, too cool and it refused to bind. The ideal ratio, 60% fat to 40% meat, was not guesswork. It was the result of generations of trial and error. Dried chokecherries were sometimes added for vitamin C and flavor, but the real magic was in the energy. 1 pound of pemmican held about 3,000 calories, enough fuel to keep people moving for hours. That is 2 or 3 times the punch of modern trail food. For this family's journey, 60 pounds of pemmican was their reserve, enough to stretch across 2 weeks, with no room for waste and no backup if the math failed. At 2.5 miles per hour, the family's pace never wavers. This rhythm isn't just tradition, it is the result of generations studying what bodies and animals can actually sustain. The Travois, lashed behind a sturdy horse, carries up to 300 pounds. But weight alone isn't the measure of success. The heaviest gear, stones for cooking, hide tools, poles for the winter lodge, rides low and centered, reducing drag and strain on the animal's shoulders. Lighter bundles, like sleeping furs and clothing, are stacked above, with the most delicate items, medicine, children's treasures, placed at the edges. Every pound has its place, balanced for the horse's gait and endurance. Pack horses carry food and supplies in parfleche bags, weight distributed evenly to avoid injury. Even the youngest children carry small loads, building strength with every step. Modern endurance athletes like Ray Zahab have studied this method, finding that a steady, moderate pace, never too fast, never too slow, lets humans and animals travel astonishing distances without collapse. For this family, energy is rationed as carefully as pemmican. The right pace, the right load, and the right design mean the difference between arrival and disaster. A journey of this length demanded more than strong bodies and rich food. It depended on a hidden network stretching across the grasslands. Every 50 to 70 miles, families buried supply caches beneath the prairie, marking them with landmarks a child could remember. A split cottonwood, a boulder shaped like a bison, a bend in the creek. These directions weren't written down. They were recited, repeated, and memorized from the age of 5, passed along in stories and daily tasks. A cache might hold dried meat, spare sinew, a flint striker, or a pouch of medicinal roots, and whatever the next traveler might need. The rule was simple: take what you require, leave what you can. Over generations, these stores turned migration into a collective effort. Archaeologists have uncovered cache pits layered with tools and food remains from different centuries, evidence that the system endured. Modern logistics experts study these patterns, finding echoes of them in today's distribution networks. For the Lakota, these caches meant a family could travel lighter, move faster, and survive hazards that would stop the unprepared. By the 5th day, the river runs high and cold, fed by early snowmelt from the mountains. The current moves fast, 4 to 6 miles per hour, and the water is near 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Crossing means risk. The eldest rides first, guiding the horse into the current, trailing a rope to the far bank. Once secure, the line becomes a lifeline for everyone else. Each person grips the rope, feet numb, balance tested by the pull of the river. The youngest is carried, wrapped in her mother's arms. They move quickly, knowing that in water this cold, a child could lose strength in less than half an hour. The rope helps, but it is a double-edged tool. If the current sweeps someone off their feet, the right move is to let go rather than be dragged under. On the far side, the family burns precious calories just to get warm again. Later, a blister on the 8-year-old's foot reddens and streaks toward the ankle. Yarrow, gathered the previous summer, is crushed and applied as a poultice. Its compound slow infection, buying time. At camp, the grandmother, 70 years old, drags a loaded travois up the bank. She is not an observer. She is vital, hauling gear, tending wounds, teaching by doing. The journey's hazards test every system, but the family's resilience is built for moments exactly like these. Every detail of this migration, from the route chosen to the way stories are told, comes under the guidance of tribal authority. Decisions about what can be shared, which teachings belong to the wider world, and which must remain within the community are made by elders, those whose memories and experience anchor the group. Before any scene is recreated or knowledge is explained, it is reviewed by a designated cultural consultant, often a tribal historic preservation officer. This process is not a formality. It is the foundation for trust. Elders decide what is appropriate to show, what language to use, and how the journey is remembered. Their approval is not just ethical protocol, it is the difference between an outside interpretation and a story told with permission. In this way, the narrative reflects not only the facts of endurance, but the living authority of those who have inherited and protected these traditions. Every quantitative claim in this story is anchored to a named source. When a number appears, whether it is the daily mileage, the caloric density of pemmican, or the weight a travois can carry, a citation appears in the lower third of the screen. Ethnographic details draw from fieldwork by scholars like Raymond DeMalley and Alice Fletcher, data on pacing and endurance reference interviews with Ray Zahab, and published findings in exercise physiology. Pemmican composition and shelf life are supported by museum curators and modern food science, with direct reference to lab studies and historical records. Cache system details are paired with archaeological site reports. Every expert, from Lakota elders to historians, is credited by name and affiliation. This approach keeps the film accountable, giving viewers a clear path to check the evidence behind each fact. Today, most children struggle to walk a mile. The knowledge that once built endurance from birth fades fast. As modern life separates us from movement, ancient skills risk vanishing not from failure, but from neglect. What we choose to remember or forget shapes our future resilience. Share your thoughts below.